Man, this video really bums me out to make. I don't take any pleasure in calling out a festival I've been a fan of for a long time, but after the years of unprofessionalism and disrespect toward fans, it's only gotten worse over time. Well, I think it's about time somebody said something. 70,000 Tons of Metal, the world's biggest and first heavy metal festival set on board a cruise ship, is an experience unlike any other. It's about 4 days on a luxurious cruise ship, complete with 4 venues, restaurants, a buffet, a spa, hot tub, countless bars, and 3,000 metalheads partying and headbanging under the Caribbean sun while watching 60 metal bands. It is a vacation unlike any other for a metalhead, where you can spend a full day in a hot tub drinking under the sun while watching bands melt your face off, then going straight to an all-you-can-eat buffet before watching more bands and then retiring to your own bed and shower, then waking up at a port somewhere in the Caribbean. I've been on the cruise 3 times and it's been a blast each time. It is so much fun. There's many immediate perks about 70,000 Tons of Metal, given that it takes place on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, one of which being that there's no real backstage area. Unless band members are in their rooms or playing on stage, you'll most likely see your favorite musicians walking around and relaxing with a pina colada at some point. Unfortunately, the team behind 70,000 Tons seem to be aware of the automatic perks that come with the festival being on a major cruise ship, and use those perks as an excuse to do the absolute bare minimum when it comes to everything else. Seriously, the boat is an amazing time, but ask anyone who's sailed on it a couple of times, and they'll tell you how the months leading up to the cruise will have you digging your fingernails into your forehead out of frustration. Of course, running a festival, let alone one on a cruise ship, comes with a lot of challenges that takes months, if not a full year, to plan ahead of time, and last-minute issues are bound to come up. Not to mention the fact that a pandemic stopped all live events for 2 years. I'm not going to pretend like running a festival like 70K is an easy task. That being said, there have been consistent issues and an extreme lack in professionalism that's only gotten worse over the years. So much so that many veterans of the cruise have decided to go elsewhere. The biggest and most glaring issue for 70,000 Tons of Metal, the one that's really caused the issues so many fans have grown tired of, is concerning their announcements. Or rather, their lack thereof. While it's true that 60 bands play the cruise, and sometimes there might even be 2 or 3 extra once the lineup is fully announced, 70,000 Tons of Metal prides itself on announcing its bands so late in the year that most fans end up overwhelmingly frustrated, and many decide to not go because of it. Let me ask you, viewer, would you be willing to spend thousands of dollars to go to a metal festival across the world when you didn't even know who was going to be playing it? 70,000 Tons announces bands individually, 1 or 2 bands on a random day when the planets happen to align. Some festivals do it this way, Wacken tends to do it like this, and some other festivals like Hellfest or Psycho Las Vegas tend to announce most of their lineup at the same time, with one big announcement. It varies between festivals, and it isn't unusual for a festival to do it individually like 70K does. That's pretty normal. But the problem with 70K's strategy is how unbelievably, ridiculously long they wait to begin any of those announcements. In 2018, when the cruise was set for February 1st through 5th, 70,000 Tons announced their first batch of bands in July 2017, 7 months before departure. Now that's not a bad time frame. Many festivals tend to do their announcements 6 months to a year before the event takes place. But in 2019, when the cruise took place January 31st to February 4th, 70K announced their first bands in September 2018, 5 months before departure day. For the 2020 cruise, which took place January 7th through 11th, the first band announcements came in October 2019, about 4 months till departure day. And for the upcoming cruise taking place January 30th through February 3rd, 2023, 70,000 Tons of Metal didn't make their first band announcement until October 28th, 2022, 3 months before departure day. Every year, consistently, 70,000 Tons' announcements have only gotten later and later in the year. And notice for each of these years, I only mentioned those are their first announcements. Remember how I said 70,000 Tons announces their bands individually over time? Well, if they announced their first band only 3 or 4 months before, how quickly would you expect the rest of the lineup to come out? For the last few years, 70K has made a habit of leaving 1/4 to almost half of its lineup unannounced even 1 month before the festival takes place. At the time of making this video, for the 2023 edition taking place at the end of January. As of January 8th, 2023, they still have 20 bands to announce. That's 1/4 of the lineup unknown, less than a month before sailing. And that's not just this year. Every year the same damn thing. 1 month before departure day, a large chunk of the lineup still won't be announced. It's even happened where some bands have been announced for the cruise while passengers were boarding the cruise. Now, I won't pretend that it's not exciting to have a last-minute surprise band or two you weren't expecting to make the festival extra exciting when you get there. That can be awesome, but I do not understand the business strategy behind not having even half of your lineup announced 3 months before your festival takes place. Particularly this year after the pandemic, lockdowns, inflation. Many people are hurting for money right now and probably can't afford a sudden cruise that costs a couple thousands of dollars and might be a several-hour plane ride away from them. I mean, if you're in the position where it's no problem for you to drop that much cash that quickly and jet off on a last-minute metal cruise in a month's notice, then hey, more power to you. That's fantastic. I'm jealous. But I don't think it's crazy to say most people need more time to plan and save for something like that. I'd imagine you'd probably need a couple months' notice to save up, buy tickets, figure out airfare and hotels, request time off of work. And if you still don't know who's going to be playing 2 months out, then how eager are you going to be to make it happen? What if you planned on attending the next 70,000 tons and as you're on your way to Miami, the lineup is revealed and you're disappointed at who's on it and you don't like any of the bands playing? You just spent months planning and a few grand only to be disappointed. Maybe you would have preferred to save that money for the following year instead, and if you had seen the lineup early, you could have done that. Or what if you'd like to go on the cruise but you're not rich and don't want to take a gamble on not knowing the lineup, only for your favorite band to get announced 4 weeks before the cruise and now it's way too late for you to attend. But if you'd known the lineup maybe 6 months in advance and saw that your favorite band was playing, it probably would have been a lot more likely for you to make it happen and for you to attend. I don't think it's rocket science to explain that if people know who's going to be playing sooner, they're more likely to be able to attend the festival. I can't imagine if Wacken or Hellfest didn't have their lineup announced 3 months before they took place. Most people don't want to gamble their one vacation of the year and hundreds if not thousands of dollars on a mystery box. But why would they possibly wait so long to announce the bands, you might be asking? Surely they'd have already booked the bands months in advance, right? I mean, there's no way a major festival would wait till the last minute to book their lineup, right? Well, once again, I hate to be the bearer of stupid news, but if you're surprised a band got added to the cruise at the last minute, odds are that band is just as surprised as you are. It seems like for their big headlining bands like Emperor or Nightwish, they do actually book them at a somewhat reasonable time frame, but for everyone else, they literally wait to the last minute. Many bands have played the cruise and have told fans they were asked to play 2 months, 1 month, even a few days before the cruise. In 2019, Napalm Death, one of my favorite bands, they played and they said that they were asked to perform 3 days before the cruise set sail. 3 days! Waiting this long tends to leave 70K with bands that weren't busy at the moment and can scramble last minute to Miami. And some of those bands can be awesome, sure, most definitely. But with a little planning ahead of time, 70K would be able to pull much better lineups with more bands that people would be willing to travel for. To be fair, of course, there's the matter of logistics. Touring schedules, bands that wouldn't be able to do the full cruise, last-minute cancellations. I totally get all that, and after the last 2 years, I'm sure there were extra hurdles for the 70K team to jump through. But at the same time, it's really no excuse at this point because, as it turns out, there are multiple heavy metal cruises now in various parts of the world, and none of them have this same issue with bans and announcements. Lamb of God have announced their first cruise taking place at the end of October 2023, and they announced their first batch of bands, including more info on the event, in November 2022, a year in advance. They do still have some bands left to announce, but the fact is they had their big names, their main draws, announced a year ahead of time to hype up fans. Also, to prove my point further, the Lamb of God cruise that happens in 11 months from now is already sold out, while 70,000 tons, happening in 3 weeks, still has rooms available. Shiprocked, another festival cruise, takes place January 22nd to 28th of 2023. Most of their lineup has been announced since July 2022. Monsters of Rock cruise, a more old-school festival, takes place April 29th, 2023. Their lineup has been announced since last May. I could keep going, but my point here is if these other cruises can have even half of their lineups announced 6 months or more ahead of time, then what is 70,000 Tons of Metal's excuse for their late announcements? Why can these festivals face the same logistical issues as 70K, but they can book and announce bands months earlier? If it's COVID, then why did the same thing happen in 2019? and 2018, and the years before that. If it's touring logistics, which are a nightmare right now, then why can't these other cruises have bands booked months in advance? With this being such an ongoing issue, obviously fans have commented on this in Facebook groups and 70K's own social media pages, which leads me to my next point in this video. Now, I'm trying to be fair here and not paint 70K to be worse than it is. It's most definitely a fun time, and I've had great experiences on this cruise. But there's just no way I can talk about this next part without being completely honest. 70,000 Tons of Metal's social media team is fucking terrible. If you go on 70,000 Tons of Metal's Facebook and look through the comments on their posts for 2 minutes, you'll quickly realize their preferred method of communication is GIFs. Now hey, I love GIFs. I'm a modern person who uses the internet, and GIFs can be really hilarious. But when fans try to communicate real issues with them, whether it's where the fuck are any of the bands, or when are you going to give us any information at all for a cruise that takes place in 4 months, the 70,000 Tons of Metal team only ever responds with silly GIFs. In the months leading up to the cruise when nothing has been announced yet, the 70K social media team like to spam their profiles with pictures of their 70K pool girls in sexy poses on the beach. Which is all well and fine, until you go through the comments and see at least half of them are desperate fans practically begging for any actual information. Where will the cruise be going this year? Boobs! What bands will be playing? Boobs! When can we start booking? Boobs! Can you please just tell me anything at all so I can make an informed decision if I want to go on this vacation or not? Man boobs! Don't get me wrong, the pool girls are definitely nice to look at and are actually a lot more helpful than you may think. But when you're 5 months away from your festival and fans are begging you to give them information, it just feels very disrespectful and immature to respond like a middle school kid who's never seen titties before. The sad part is 70K could at least try to explain why their announcements take so long and give fans a heads up so they know what's going on. Fans always respect when any company is transparent and honest with them, and are willing to forgive issues that come up if you tell them about it. But why do that when you've got more pictures of hot girls in bikinis to post instead? I've spoken to many people over the years who have attended 70,000 Tons of Metal before that refuse to go back because they're tired of how shitty 70 is to their customers. The event sells itself since it's literally a floating tropical metal festival, but the appeal of that shouldn't be used as an excuse to fuck fans around just because you know they're gonna pay you anyway. Although I don't know how well that strategy is going for them since there's still plenty of rooms available 3 weeks before the cruise takes place. It's a complete and utter mystery just what the hell the team behind 70,000 Tons of Metal does in the months before the cruise, but one thing is for certain, they're not using that time to do background checks on any of their bands. While 70's been scrambling to find bands to play the cruise this year, one band they ended up booking was Vector, only to announce the very next day that they decided to remove him from the lineup. For those that don't know, there are certain allegations going around involving Vector's frontman that are not great. I'm not going to comment on them here because that's not the point of this video, but I will say it's not exactly hard to find these allegations. Typing Vector into Google search, it'll pop up pretty immediately. So if 70K booked them only to remove them the next day, that sure sounds like 70 didn't even bother to look up anything about the band before booking and announcing them. Now this has caused a lot of drama within the 70K fans, with some screaming cancel culture and some saying they should have never been booked. Whatever your personal feelings on the matter are, I think it's fair to say if 70K had done even 2 minutes of research, they would have known bringing Vector on board would cause some outrage. Removing them from the lineup shows they weren't prepared for the backlash, and had they done any type of research first, they could have just not booked them in the first place, instead of inciting a comment section war on Facebook. Just a couple of hours after this, another band released a lengthy Facebook post where they said they were asked to play a certain metal cruise, but the offer was then revoked due to allegations against the band from years ago that the band have repeatedly stated are false. Again, no matter how you feel about this situation and their allegations, this is just more drama and bad publicity 70K could have avoided if they had done a damn Google search before sending an offer. Now, despite the mind-bogglingly dumb issues I just highlighted and sheer unprofessionalism, this video isn't meant to ruin 70K and to bring their company down by any means. It's actually quite the opposite, because I have had truly incredible times on that ship and I would love to have more. It really is one of the most fun experiences you'll ever get and has some of the craziest partying you've ever seen. It's an amazing time and I'd be surprised if anyone went and didn't enjoy it, but for how fun and awesome the festival may be, the team behind it really need to start treating their customers better. We need actual information so we can plan ahead of time. Announce bands and booking information in a time that makes sense and allows fans time to plan for it. And if you can't do that, then explain why. People are a lot more understanding and forgiving than you may think. They'll understand if something happens behind the scenes that pushes things back as long as you're open and upfront about it. But when there's radio silence for months apart from memes and boobs, fans feel disrespected and belittled for asking very normal and fair questions. fans. This video isn't meant to talk anyone out of going to the festival. If it's something that appeals to you, you should absolutely do it. It's a great time. You'll never forget it. But if the 70,000 Tons of Metal team could be a lot more professional, a lot more transparent, and not wait till the last minute to book bands, I think it would be a much more successful event that fans would have a lot more respect for, and I'm pretty sure 70K's sales numbers would agree with me on that. I hope to go back to this festival one day. I hope it improves. I hope they start treating fans better, and I genuinely hope it becomes the most successful festival in the world, as long as they do right by the fans who want to attend it.